Welcome to the Business Extra. I'm Mustafa Alrawi, the National's Assistant Editor-in-Chief. With me is my co-host and the National's future editor, Kelsey Warner. Hi, Kelsey.
Hey, Mustafa.
Well, today we're talking about food security, an important topic for the region, but in particular, we're talking about how women-led startups are going to help provide greater access to food here. In a moment, we're going to talk to Zada Haj, the CEO of Dana. Before we do that, please do subscribe. If you're on YouTube, ring that bell. Zada Haj, CEO of Dana, thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me and Dana. So Mustafa and Kelsey, it's a great being here. It's a great pleasure also meeting you.
Dana, how would you describe yourselves? I mean, I know you're a VC, you offer investment, you offer expertise, even R&D. What is Dana from your point of view?
Oh, actually, it's a great question because I will take you through how we developed ourselves. In the beginning, we thought of being a venture builder for startups that are led at least by one female founder. And then we discovered how important is not only to work with women founders from the bottom up, but also having empowering women from top down, which is the investments. So we both cover the side of services and R&D and facilitating the beta sites and our other services that are crucial for the startup success. On the other hand, hopefully, and it will be a VC that is a separated entity, but will be a synergy between these two entities that will, one is investing and one is working with a startup as a temporary during a 1 year long.
So you work with a company for a year when you get involved with them, that's correct?
Yeah, so maybe I can give you an overview of what we really do. In Dana Venture Builder, we basically take startups that are relevant for the MENA region markets, Middle East and North Africa, emerging markets that are led at least by one woman founder, and in the sectors of desert tech. When I say desert tech, it means food, agri-tech, food security, renewable energy, circular economy, when we focus on sustainability and positive impact on the environment. So these are the the main focuses in Dana. And how we do it is that we build a work plan for the startups that is very designated for the startup themselves. Each startup has a different work plan. We work with them during between 8 months to 14 months, depends on the stage, depends on the needs, the services. And we facilitate during this year, first of all, the deep research of regulations of how the market fit is relevant to their product, feasibility testing in one of our beta sites in the region, as the Masdar beta site will be one of the main beta sites for our startups to test their products there, since we are talking about products usually are a combination of hardware and software, which needs the not only the lab, but also the open field, the net houses, the greenhouses to test these products. And then after we watch the progress of the product, of the team, of the startup themselves, we then can decide if this startup is ready for investment or not. And if not, what are the next steps that needs to be taken to make them more successful.
I want to ask you more about these beta sites. It feels like you've got hands in the soil. You're really building something at these spots. Can you talk a little bit more about just where are they? And what are some of the products that you are working on? I saw that your first cohort has 6 startups involved. And I'm curious, what are they working on and what role do these beta sites kind of play in the whole R&D process?
Of course. So we started basically from Wadi Araba, our first beta site, and it shown a huge success for the needs of our startups. If I will make an example for one startup that has finished successfully their proof of concept in Wadi Araba. They are a biological pesticide that on one hand doesn't kill the pests. On the second hand, it attracts the bees. So it's a win-win for the nature, but also for the farmers and for us humans, that we will be safer with the biological pesticides. And they had their trial on four different kinds of cucumber, watermelon, or whatever, like kinds of fruits and vegetables. And after we have seen success, we are now planning to bring them to our second beta site that it's in developing stage in Masdar City in Abu Dhabi, which will be one of the main places for our startups, but not only, that will have the chance to make their trials on the site and to understand what are the problems, if they need to pivot, because pivots in the sectors of hardware, software, such as agri-tech, food tech, it costs a lot of money for the startups. And we make sure that our startups not only don't waste a lot of time, but also money. It's important to save them these two very main resources of money and time. And this is what will be in the beta site in Masdar City. There will be open field for trials, net houses, greenhouses for the trials. It will be with a control group that will be on site, managers who will give us the real-time feedback, what's happening with the product, what's happening in the field, and to understand deeply how this product can work when we are scaling up. The third beta site, we are now on the stages of having the third beta site. It will be basically in Morocco, because we see a huge advantage in our region, in the Middle East and North Africa, of each country has a special ecosystem. One is more for the R&D. The other is more for the scale up. The other is more for the proof of concept and to see how much the same product can work in different kinds of soils, in different kinds of environments. And this is like our strategy of making a network of beta sites to facilitate for our startups the specific services they need for their success.
So what made you choose Desert Tech? Perhaps what some people might know as agri-tech, obviously very important, but how did that end up being the focus of your company?
It's actually how our company was born. 2 years ago, after the pandemic, maybe in about half year, I had a co-founder. I had a startup, and her name was Dana Salah. She passed away in a car accident, and it was shocking for me and a turning point in my life. I wanted to do something for her memory. So I approached our mentor back then, who was Shirley Shachar, and she is huge passionate about the sectors of desert tech. And she had developed some program in Harvard regarding promoting the desert tech sectors, which is agri-tech, food tech, renewables. And when I approached her, she told me, I have this program I developed during one course in Harvard, and I think it's a great idea if you like it. And mainly, my roots are from a farmer's family, farmer's village, and it's like a combination of a passion of one of the founders. It's the roots of the other founder, and it's the Katie Vaxberger, who's also a huge fan of environment, of having positive impact. So somehow it started from there as a passion, as one of the focuses that we wanted to start with. But we understand the business potential of that if the fintech a decade ago was the buzz of the region, now it's absolutely, after the pandemic, the COVID, and after the war between Ukraine and Russia, it's a huge opportunity, not only for the agri-tech sector, but also for the supply chain of how the food production and the food supply is working around the world. And since we are from the region, We want to promote these sectors in the region. And we can see it also in the governmental plans, how we can see the GCC, how there is a lot of plans after the pandemic to have a food security in Morocco as well, because Morocco is depending on the exporting to Europe. Since Europe is now transforming into more biological, more pro-environment products, it needs to have the source that is also providing these kind of products, which is the agri-tech that is more sustainable, that is more benefiting the environment, and not only facing the problem, but also solving the problem of environmental crisis.
No, I was going to say, sorry, Kelsey, I just wanted to say, sorry for your loss. And the story you're explaining, starts with tragedy or involves tragedy, but then moves on to something that is quite inspiring. And when you're talking about food security, of course, that's very important for the region as well, given the circumstances. Kelsey, do go on.
No, and really to piggyback off of that, I'm wondering the decision to go and lead on female-founded startups, and now your search for qualified startups to work with. Kara Swisher, a tech reporter that I really admire, has predicted that the first trillionaire will be one who comes up with a climate change solution. And so I'm wondering, looking at the founders in this region, particularly female founders, what are you looking for? What advice do you have? And what are making some good ideas to you these days? What are you looking at?
It's a great two questions, actually. The focus on women leadership, as I mentioned, it started really from a friend that I lost. She's a woman. She was a fighter for her rights, for promote herself in the ecosystem of mainly men. And from there, we started to focus also on women founders, but not only a team of women, because we believe in diversity. We believe in the power of having different backgrounds in the team, having different kind of emotional intelligence, but also different sides of tackling the problems. And this is the success key for, first of all, for teams to have the diversity. On second hand, when we talk about women in the region, if we say more or less, it's about 40% of the agriculture is come from women in the fields, in the agriculture. But when you look at the pyramid, it's more men up there. And what we want to do is to empower these women by facilitating the right platform for them, that they can also do it. You can see a lot of women in the academia research, and they continue in academia because it's a safe place for them. But no, we want also to promote that you have a safe place out there, even though there is a high risk of failure. Failure is a success in the startups world because you learn a lot from your mistakes. You have a huge plus and advantages if you know what is not right to do, and not only what is right to do. And this is on the focusing on women. And as statistics shows, women raise less capital, use less money, make more money and profits for their startups, is statistics. So it's also a very strong point to focus on. What talent we are looking for your second question, is basically the talent of, have the potential, have the resilience of facing the tough times in the startup lifetime, but not only, it's the solution itself. Our region needs different kind of solutions, not drones that will solve the very sophisticated problems. No, we need smart solutions, tech solutions in agri-tech, in agriculture, in food production, in irrigation, in renewable energy, that these solutions can easily scale up in the Middle East and North Africa. This is our main focus. And if I want to take what Shirley Shahar always say, it's her famous sentence, we're looking for rhinos, not unicorns, because rhinos are real, and they are resilient, and they are sustainable in their way of life. And this is what we are looking for in our tech solutions, in our startups.
Sorry, which animal? Rhinos?
Rhinos, yeah.
Do you mean deer?
The rhinos.
We say camels. I've heard camels before. We need camels, not unicorns.
Camels, if you take the camel from the sand and you put it on the street, he cannot survive.
Oh, rhinos.
Rhinos.
Yes, not unicorns. Yes. No,
rhinos.
I can see that now.
Yeah. So sorry for my spelling. Rhinos.
We're with you now.
No, that's a great comparison because both have horns, and the rhino is very strong and steady, and real, while the unicorn is mythical. And so is that what you say to your startups? We want you to become rhinos?
Yeah, not unicorns. We're looking for rhinos. We're looking for tech solutions that has the real problem solving of the MENA region problems in these sectors. And this is what we tell them, and this is how we try to facilitate each service that we can provide for them to make it happen.
You touched upon something earlier about having operations in different parts of the region. And when we talk about Middle East, North Africa, it's not a monolith. It's not sort of one experience. Depending on, one country to another, there's a different way of doing business and operating. Can you talk a little bit about those differences?
Wow, absolutely. It's a great question because working with different founders from different regions, you can discover a lot. How the culture of innovation is different, not only in the stages, but way of thinking about innovation. And some regions or some places lack of the experience. Some places lack of the understanding of the culture of our region. And some of them lack of the understanding of what does it cost to establish your company in X country and not in Y country, and how this will affect your scale up. So you need to cover for these founders the gap of understanding and knowledge in the region, because it's to go to the US, it's the easier way, because it's one law, one kind of approach. Most of the startups knows how to scale up and to whom to approach. And what we are trying to do in Dana is to provide this platform to give you the best answers, where to establish your company, how to do it right, and what is missing in your knowledge or in your experience, that we can continue that as a temporary co-founders during the year and helping them to over the obstacles of gaps between the countries in our region.
And do those gaps offer opportunities, or is it really just a matter of the challenges you have to negotiate?
It's a great question as well.
I would actually like to add sort of a more specific point on that. So for the example, like the UAE has a national food security strategy, 2051. I think here, for me, living here, I'm sort of drinking the Kool-Aid on this idea of the UAE as being at the pointy edge of the spear on food security and tackling ag tech challenges. But could you place us within the region and provide some context for how is Morocco approaching food security? How is Saudi approaching it? What does it look like in Jordan? So there are certainly opportunities where there are shortcomings, but where are you seeing them and what's actually happening?
Of course, as we know, the UAE has the national food security strategy by 2023, 2030, 2051, and we usually are always updating our startups to make sure that we are aligned with the national strategy and the governmental plans and strategies in the region. So if we are looking at the UAE, the main focus is to be 100% food secured, of 100% of being provider for the locals, of a local local production for the locals. But not only if we look at Egypt, where you have the talent, it's more for a scale up, but not only for the locals and the Egyptians, it's more also to export. Since we saw the war again between Ukraine and Russia, we see the governmental entities are going more to focus on what is the needs for exporting in our strategy. Do we need biological pesticides? Do we need some kind of statistics of water waste, of food waste? What are the exact terms that we need to make our production fit to the European strategies? If we go to Saudi, the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, it's a different story because it's a great place to scale up, a great place for investments, a great place for R&D as well, and exporting. So it's very different from country to country. If we go to Morocco, 85% of the fresh produce is in the Agadir region. And now Morocco is focusing on Africa as well as Europe because it's the gate between these two regions. And what the strategy in Morocco is to be aligned with what's happening in Africa for the 10, 20, 30 years from now and what's happening in Europe on the other side. And this is how you need to tackle each place, what their plans, to whom they are related. If UAE, if it's related to KSA, Egypt, if it's related to the East Europe, Morocco to Western Europe. It's very specific, and you need always to follow these laws and these strategies and these agendas so you make sure you're putting your startups on the right path.
No, I love this what we're talking about. Lately there's been a lot of doom and gloom, and what we're discussing right now really does play against the narrative and offers some optimism, and gets away from kind of a bit of the doom and gloom around the cost of living, inflation, conflict, the other crises we're facing, but really does address those, for example, climate change and other things that are needed, resilience. But I guess moving on the discussion, investors are notoriously impatient. So when you want to talk about your approach, your more measured focus, how does that discussion go with investors? How do you get them to see the bigger picture, to take things in a more sustained, slower manner, and sort of even be able to say, I'm going to judge things over the next year and a half. I'm maybe going to look at a 5-year horizon instead of immediately being able to point to where those returns might come from?
Actually, I will take this question for two parts. The first part is the knowledge and investors' education. If you look 5 years ago, investors in our region didn't even think about agri-tech, most of them. It wasn't the hot topic to invest in. It was like it's a waste of money, a waste of time. But since we see the COP 27 and the COP 28 are being in the region, will be held in the region, it increased a lot the strategy of investors in what to invest, where to put their money, and to understand deeply if this money will come in 5 years from now or 10 years from now, because it's a different sectors than what they used to do in the 30 recent years. Once it was in cybersecurity, in 4 years, you can see 10x, 20x. Now it's not the situation. The situation now, it needs 7 years. The investors will understand deeply that these are the future sectors. They need to invest in these sectors. The time, it's all depends on what's happening. We never imagined the pandemic is happening, but it happened. So whoever dealt with the food security before the pandemic, they just made it. It's a great deal for them. Whoever was aligned with the crisis in the food supply chain, in the agriculture, in the renewable energy, if they are on the right path of reducing the failure rate, they are making it. So the investors are now more aware where to put their money and how much it will cost in time measurement. The second part of your question is more of as you asked, the startups after a year, they need to invest, not to invest. It's not always the case because we work with the startups from pre-seed to round A. If you are talking about a startup that they are only have the patent or the idea or the very basic MVP, we want to test it before they get money. And they don't pay us money. They don't waste money. It's we take portion of their equity. We take upfront 5% to whatever we, based on milestones, how much time, how much efforts, how much each service will cost in money, we transform it to an equity. And in the end of the year, we will start to invest. This investment will be more helpful for them, not to wait for the big investment of $2 million or $3 million, but it's a very basic investments, small checks for them, $500,000, $300K. It's different. It's very diverse. So they can at least move forward with their trial. So we can invest in them and to have a leading investor or leading VC in them. So it's a very, very dynamic, since we are working in a dynamic region, but not only, we are working with the different stages, pre-seed to round A. Each one has different kind of needs regarding the resource of money, of place, of time, and efforts of human resources.
Zada Haj, CEO of Dana, thank you so much for talking to us today.
Wow, thank you so much. I'm so excited of answering your question. It's always making more enthusiasm of giving more to the ecosystem and trying more for our region and for the benefit of the human future.
Well, that's all we've got time for today. Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you.
All that remains to thank our production team and you all for being with us. Do join us again next time.